Have any?
Oh shoot! Eat this ball nobles from Eat to Perform. I actually started the broadcast by accident, but we might as well get rolling here. April, did you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
So, for a lot of people, we have a lot of people just showing up. Um, and it looks like we're going to have a pretty big class again today, so let's make sure to get those questions in as soon as possible so we can address those. And so the class doesn't go super long. Um, Anything interesting happening, April, in the forums?
Everybody's getting pumped about the new challenge. So getting into the routine, getting started, and everybody's getting excited again.
Yeah, that's cool. I suppose I should probably say something about why I have a mohawk. Um, but
Because you're
um,
because you're awesome.
well, for those that don't know, I mean, I'm not an accountant. You know, like I can pretty much dress and do kind of what I want, and I started doing these when I first entered the Tough Mudder like 4 years ago, and kind of figured out I liked it. And so I've probably done this, 3 or 4 times. And I thought with the Open, I was going to do it the first week, and then the opportunity came up. But then I also, Sam Dancer has an anti-bullying campaign called Tough as Nails, and the idea is that men would paint their nails, and then my nails say "Love the Bully" because in his post he said that you know the bullies need more love than anybody, and so that was how I supported the message. So I'm a little out there, with the mohawk and the nails right now, but it's fine. I'm okay. We'll get through this. Um, but it is making for some interesting YouTube videos lately. Um, but yeah, no, on my end, we're in the second week of the CrossFit Open. Um, for those that don't know, um, and you're in the forums, we have a new social group on Facebook with almost like 1,000 people. We've added I think this week we added like 700 people. So if you're looking to kind of piece together kind of what you're doing in the forums, but also have like a social element, I can tell you it's a really fun, uplifting group, and it will really enhance your Eat to Perform experience in a big way, because you'll see a lot of people doing stuff. I mean, like, you see a lot of this stuff in the forums, and the forums are awesome, but this is kind of just like that natural extension that uses social media in really kind of the best way that it can be used. Um, so yeah, so those have been kind of the big additions lately. We're really not getting any questions at this point. I did start making some YouTube videos um, doing case studies on the calorie wave method, and I'm going to continue doing that. We do have a coach's course that's going to be coming up here real soon, and so I'm spending a little bit of time on the marketing of that. And but I'm trying to do one video a day. And so somebody, or Cynthia is raising her hand, but Cynthia, if you could just go ahead and ask the question, that would be awesome.
I have actually
Um,
gotten quite a few inquiries in the forum about the coach's course already.
oh yeah?
Yes, and several text messages as well. So word travels fast.
Yeah. I mean, I only mentioned it today.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've actually had it in the works for probably 2 months. Mike has been working on that pretty diligently, and it's pretty exciting. Somebody asked, like, how can I use this certification? It really isn't a certification. It's not like a 4-year nutrition degree, but what it really is going to do is sort of get people up to speed on um, Eat to Perform methods, and how Eat to Perform approaches fat loss compared to your standard constantly deficit dieting way of thinking of things. And Mike's got a great way of talking about the science, but also making it interesting, where you're not just like, oh, this sucks. I do seminars with Mike fairly often, and they go really well. I mean, I'm kind of the normal everyday guy. I used to be obese, and I'm not, and this is what I did. And then Mike talks about like the science behind all that, and why that works. And so it's pretty entertaining. We did. I ended up doing one recently. Well, Mike and I went and did one at an athletes camp at Hyperfit in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then I did one in Lexington, Kentucky. And so I ended up having to take Mike's part, which I can do okay with, but not totally as good as Mike. Obviously, he's a professor and a PhD of exercise physiology, so that lends you a little bit more presentation time or effort, because he does that more often than I do. I don't think a lot of people realize, I mean, obviously Mike wrote our book, but I don't think a lot of people realize that Mike is one of the most sought after speakers at conferences worldwide. He's going to be heading to Japan here soon. I think he's one of the speakers at PaleoFX here in the next month or so. So yeah, some real cool opportunities for Mike. Great ways to sort of get the Eat to Perform name out there, and it's all good at this point. Yeah, I mean, anything. So in terms of like your whole fat loss thing, did that come to a screeching halt, or you just lost interest?
Well, not really interest. I didn't really lose interest. It's, I guess kind of life gets in the way. I'm still only really training 4 days a week, sometimes 3. I'm currently in the process of painting just about everything in my house, to put my house on the market next month. So it's just a lot of work, a lot of stress, doing all that for the most part. But I do find, it was funny, I was talking to a coaching client the other day, and I was explaining to her that, like NEAT exercise, your NEAT activity, how, even though I may not have worked out for 2 days in a row, and I still kept my calories, fairly highish on those days, but, painting for 7-8 hours a day, 2 days in a row, you feel it. Your hunger comes back in a vengeance. Just from the activity of doing that stuff like that.
What's interesting about what you're saying is that my wife was doing the fat loss challenge with me, and it took a little bit longer for her to start to hit her numbers. But once she started adding in like a 45-minute walk during lunch at work, everything changed. I think everybody thinks that they have to kill themselves with activity to see results, and the truth is that's actually not the case. And usually it'll end up being kind of a net negative. Not only do you get hungry, but even if you avoid food, you end up being stressed out, you're not sleeping as good, things of that nature. My big drop actually happened when I was in San Diego. Wasn't able to work out all that much, so I ended up going for longer walks. But I was very active at the seminars, and just kind of walking around a lot, and even without any exercise at all, I was able to drop like the last 3 pounds and kind of hit the number. It's sort of interesting coming back into eating a normal amount of food. Probably the biggest meal that I had was this Saturday, and this is a place that we haven't eaten in a while, and one of the reasons why we haven't eaten, and I think this kind of illustrates how even now, even having a really enlightened approach to food, there are still places that I sort of avoid because I know like the price you're going to pay is kind of high. And it's not so much that, it's just like inflammation or whatever. But whenever I would eat at this place, the next day, sure enough, my weight would be up 3.5 pounds. And, even at this enlightened spot, I still feel it. And sure enough, my weight was up 3 pounds. No big deal, though. I know now what that is, how to deal with it. Here's the interesting thing, though. I have a body fat machine in my house right now because we're actually looking for a home for it. We actually sort of have a home for it. I just haven't, taken the time to put it over there yet. So I've been able to check my body fat on a daily basis, and what's been interesting is that the lower carb days, even the low calorie days, those are the days that I end up being higher in fat. The day that I had the Mexican food from the place that I was sort of regretting and my weight was up 3 pounds, that was my lowest body fat, right? So it just sort of illustrates the thing that we've been saying all along, is that it's that hydration of the muscle that really makes a real big difference for people. Now, you could look at that and say, well, wouldn't you just like eat carbs all the time and eventually? No, there is a point where it becomes a net negative, but there's also another point. The reason why it uploads so efficiently is because of the low days. See, that's the part that that's the mechanism that sort of makes metabolic flexibility work so well, is that when you're using your rest days and you're relatively low carb, basically what you're doing is making your body more insulin sensitive. And what that means to be insulin sensitive is the opposite of insulin resistance. Like diabetes is insulin resistance. When you eat too low carb for too long, you become sort of insulin resistant. But when you do it periodically, it's actually better for insulin sensitivity, and ultimately you'll be less fat as a result. So I thought those were some interesting observations. Kind of like the Metcon days, it's sort of interesting, like the days that I deadlift and squat are typically, as most of you guys probably already know, those would be the days that you're going to eat more calories, more carbohydrate, and once again, those tend to be the days where I'm less fat. Metcon days, it sort of depends. Usually those are pretty favorable, though. It just really depends. I mean, whether it's a running or whether it's like a all body workout or something of that nature. But in general, the rest days, they make you more insulin sensitive, but it's those carbs and it's the activity that actually make you less fat. At least according to my body fat machine, that is pretty nice body fat machine. I couldn't afford to have one in my own home, so I suppose I could, but doesn't seem like a huge priority at this point. So Zahir is saying, do we still have time to join this month's Fat Challenge? Absolutely. You have until the 16th to turn in all your information, and today is what, the 9th?
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got 7 days. I believe it's next Monday is the last day to turn in all your information. And the one thing that everybody should know, because we have a lot of prizes that are becoming even more and more every single time. One thing that everybody should understand is that no matter which, we've sort of changed the way we're doing prizes. Basically, if we have prizes, we're going to be giving the same thing from week to week, because it's like roughly $1,000 worth of prizes every single week at this point. And so if you're a new member and you missed out on the fat loss challenge, you can still join the weekly stuff. You just won't be eligible for the ultimate winner thing. But I can tell you that we give away a lot more. It would be cool to win, and it'd be cool to be part of that challenge, and it's definitely cool to be part of a team. If you're not on a team, you should try to get on a team. If you don't know what teams are, ask Catherine. She'll be able to help you. But I just want everybody to know that if you start Eat to Perform today, you're in on all the stuff. Just put your name on the Google document, and you can be part of that drawing as well, because we want everybody to feel welcome and part of the party, right? So one of the things that I've been doing a little bit is talking a little bit more about the WAVE method recently and doing a few case studies. We're not getting a ton of questions at this point, so I feel like that would be something to review. Has that been something that's coming up a little bit in the forums, April?
Yes, it is. Quite a bit.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
it's funny because before you actually came out with it, because you and I have had this discussion, and we pretty much kind of used it ourselves already. You and I had already used it before you kind of started making the videos and the articles and stuff like that. And some of the members that I've used it on in the past, who've had great success, actually some of the people who've been featured on the page, of course they're all, the ones that I've helped directly, they're like, hey, I think you used the WAVE method, didn't you?
Yeah,
I'm like,
I wouldn't say it's like revolutionary type stuff, but I think it is sort of an interesting way to look at, kind of waving in higher caloric days. The one thing that I found in this fat loss challenge, because I did it, and then you and I both did it with Danny Horan over the holidays. One of the things that was interesting working with Danny, and I don't think you had this discussion with her, but I did. She was going through like a really, really super tough time, and it started to get pretty hard towards the end there, and her dog died and her best friend died in like the same week, and she's like, I think I just need to stop. And I said, why? What's going to make that situation better, right? Let's just see this through, and ultimately, you'll put yourself in a much better position as it relates to the CrossFit Games this year. And she did. She got to where she wanted to go. She's maintained that, like I've talked about with my situation. It's been 3-4 weeks now, no problems at all, still kind of sticking in that 170 to 172 range. But because she has that overriding CrossFit Games thing, she has the ability to kind of stick with it a little bit more than other people. But people give themselves too many outs in these scenarios, and frankly, that's one of the reasons why we try to keep things down. My wife, she hit her numbers, and she's asking me like, why can't I continue on? I said, well, first of all, for you to continue on, you're going to have to get more aggressive, either with activity or with calories. And the reality is you're going to probably end up just losing muscle, and that's not going to be favorable as it relates to fat loss. If you want to continue on and get 5 more pounds, 10 more pounds, whatever the goal is for you, there's no point in just like, in her case, she'd probably take a break for 3 months and then take another shot at it. But it sort of depends on how lean you are. Depends on, the length of the break that you need. And if you're really super lean, you probably need much longer breaks. Like Danny, as an example, I mean, she doesn't have a whole lot of fat to lose. And so now Derek has mentioned that he is sort of interested and he's pretty active in the forum. Derek, can you do me a favor and give me your macros for your total daily energy expenditure, and then I can sort of run through the basic idea of the wave for you. But some of the reasons why we're going to start like this group, with the wave method, is because there are some details that do make differences, for people. And I think more than anything, like you probably see this with the coaching, it's not so much the math that's the problem. It's like behavioral, right? I mean, it's like the little hurdles that people come up with. Can you give everybody some examples of that while Derek is getting me him?
Behaviors how?
Well, just like, I've had a really rough day. I just ate a pint of Ben & Jerry's,
Yeah, I deal with all types of different behaviors, to be honest, coming from binge behaviors to emotional eating to having a hard time, sticking to the lower carb macros on rest days to having a hard time hitting protein. What I generally do is I talk to someone and, I kind of get a feel for their background, their eating behaviors, their comfort zone, that type of thing, and then I kind of make my suggestions based on that. Because if someone is going to be, if they're only training 3 days a week and they have 4 lower calorie days or lower carb days, and they have a lot of fat to lose, number one, I will recommend to take a walk on your rest days, at least 2 or 3 of those days. I will recommend that just to get the NEAT activity up, just to take more steps and that type of thing. But if they're coming from a pretty high carb background, trying to get them to to drop down to 100 grams of carb, it just isn't going to be sustainable. So I try to find that comfort zone of what's going to be sustainable, and just getting them to form new habits and new behaviors and work on one habit at a time versus, we've talked about this before, rather than, developing a whole new workout routine and a whole new diet completely 180 from where you were before. You're pretty much setting yourself up to fail. Rather.
Yeah, the more you try to tackle, you're probably setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
So let me run through. So Derek posted his situation. Basically, Derek, he says he CrossFits 3 to 4 days a week. Let's see, weight trains 1 to 2 days a week. So essentially, the way that we sort of start things off, and this is going to be a little incomplete, but it'll give you the basic idea. So for the wave method, we'll set things at 2,400 for activity days, okay? 2,100 for low active days. Even some of your weight training days, like some of my upper body days, I'll probably use that as a 2,100, but also like yoga, things of that nature. And then a low day for Derek would be 1,800. So basically his calories go 2,400, 2,100, 1,800. That's the wave method. 1,800 would be the lowest that he would go. Okay, so he works out 6 days a week. In theory, we want him to start off at, continue doing what you're doing, just lower those calories and see what kind of success rate you have. And usually the first 3 or 4 pounds, or 3 or 4 weeks, you're able to kind of sustain things the way that you are, maybe having 1 or 2 kind of that 1,800 day. So you have 5 days that are 2,400, 2 that are 1,800, and you don't really have to worry about that middle level for a while. Okay? But what ends up happening relatively quickly is you start to hit a little bit resistance around that 4 to 5 pound mark. So the first 3 to 5 pounds kind of comes off a little bit easy, and then you start to hit that number. At that point, you have to start making a decision on what your real priority is. And frankly, it's sort of difficult. I know it was difficult for me. I even right around February 1st, I was like, oh man, this dieting sucks, you know. And I don't mind being, you know, like I like being 180. I could lift more. I could do great stuff, you know. But that is sort of the losing mentality, you know. And it was at that point where I said, okay, my priority's got to be to get down to 170. And so what I did at that point was I started mixing in that middle day. And so rather than, you know, totally fueling, you know, some of my workout days, I picked some of them, like yoga on Thursday, you know, was a low day. Sometimes I did it as 1800, like that middle, I'm using his, but that middle calorie day, and sometimes I did it as a low calorie day. Most times I did it as a middle calorie day. But then, you know, on my upper body, you know, I did that as a middle calorie day. But towards the last 3 weeks, I got really serious about the fat loss. I only trained 3 days. Like I mentioned, I had one time where like 5 days where I was at 1500 every single day. You know, 1500 was my low number. I'm a little bit smaller than Derek, and so so that's what I would suggest, is that, you know, as you need to get more aggressive, you know, we talk about this all the time, you get those rest days. Now, one of the things I did on my rest days is sort of what we talked about with April, is you do more of the low steady state type of training, and you try and hit those numbers. But the focus for the last 3 weeks is to hit your numbers, right? And do whatever it takes, you know. And you know, a lot of times activity isn't going to be the thing that sort of gets you there. It's really sort of that lack of food, and it will suck, you know. But the difference being is that normally, you know, Derek, you know, in the past, maybe he would have dieted and he would have just gone to 1800 and just sucked it up for like 3 or 4 months till he hits his numbers. We're talking about 3 weeks, and in those 3 weeks, like only 3 days would he be at 1800, right? And I was able to fit in pizza and ice cream and all these other things. Now, I ate mostly foods. I ate a lot of salads. I ate a lot of lean protein. You know, the other thing that is really important that it made it a lot easier towards the end was I wasn't super Metflex. The more I got strict about Metflex, the better result I got towards the end, right? And so when on my rest days, where I was at 1500 calories, the more I relied on fats and had ribeyes and things of that nature, the better off I was. You know, when I was having a little carbohydrate on those days, you know, it really wasn't allowing for that depletion, you know, that really was sort of needed at that point. And then, of course, you know, the next day or, you know, a couple days after that, you know, you'd add back in some carbohydrate and you'd sort of cycle out like that. And so I hope that's helpful. I mean, that's kind of the basic rundown. There's probably a few things that I could think of, and if you have any follow-ups, you can answer that. But in general, that would be a good way to start. And if you want to, Derek, you're certainly welcome to start doing this on March 15th. You don't have to wait until till the group starts. So Steve is saying, I've been doing the CrossFit Open and I'm doing really well. However, I'm gaining weight, but I'm hitting big PRs. My goal is to lose weight, though, as I'm 42, 5'8", and weigh 265. Should I focus on my performance now and weight loss later? And that answer is no. You shouldn't be 265 pounds. That's obviously something that you know. That's why you're here. You know, I do think that you can still have like your cake and eat it too a little bit, because at 265, there's probably some inefficiencies that you have in your game there that you can address while also being able to kind of use some of that stored energy. One of the big things that a lot of people don't realize, because you sort of feel good being fed, but the problem that you run into when you're 265 and try and do the open workout and things of this nature, any body weight movement is going to be really super tough. What I would suggest is sort of if for instance you're gaining weight, you should stop that. There's no reason to be gaining weight. We talk about this fairly often, that if you put on 3 to 5 pounds initially, not that big of a deal, right? Especially if you're coming from a low carbohydrate, low calorie background. But in a scenario where you have a little bit more fat to lose, there's just no reason where you shouldn't have enough control days in place. I mean, at 265 for a male, I mean, your metabolic rate's pretty high. There's some level of overfeeding happening, or maybe it's not overfeeding, but you're not cycling well enough to kind of allow for that, inflammation to get run through your system. And so I wouldn't go like full-on calorie wave method as an example right now during the open, because I don't think that'll make your open fun. But I do think that you should be a little bit more focused on carb cycling so you're not gaining weight. I'm not really seeing if he's. Let me see if I can find. There we go. Sorry. So he hasn't really followed up there. Steve, is that making sense at all? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to try and move on. But April, do you have any thoughts on that? Because, I'm just never going to tell. I'm just not going to say to a 5'8" guy, you shouldn't be losing weight. If 5'8", 260 pounds.
No, I totally agree. I think that he can still continue with his fat loss. Obviously, if you're working out hard, some level of inflammation, but I do not think he should be gaining. And I've noticed that a lot of the open workouts are shorter. Yes, you want to be fueled going into it, but they're not long chipper wads. They're not long workouts. So, if you're busting your tail for, 8, 9, 15 minutes, if he's eating, if his carb levels are super high those days, he may actually be overfeeding compared to his activity level, even though, he's killing it for the minutes that he's working out, are my thoughts. So
you did say that he's lost 40 pounds, which is great. I just think that we need to continue on that path. And like I said, that might not mean weight loss necessarily, but it certainly shouldn't mean weight gain. And even in a scenario where you're 265, you could probably get away with, waves where you lose roughly, 15 pounds because you have more fat to lose. Typically what, kind of the scenario that I put out there in one of my recent posts was for people in your situation, what I do is, as long as they have their, where are you sitting with total daily energy expenditure, Steve? What are your calories per day or on your workout days? Maybe that would be helpful. So he's at 3,400. Okay, so basically it sounds like 3,400 is a decent number, but maybe what are your rest day calories? Or do you not have rest day calories? Around the same. No, your rest day calories need to be roughly 500 to 600 calories lower based on lower carbohydrate. And so you will gain weight if you don't do that, right? Because you'll have a little bit more inflammation. Sounds like it's not super bad, but it's definitely something that you want to keep in line. Similar to what I was saying with Derek, though, how we would sort of cycle it for you is we would have you get through the open, stay roughly weight stable, kind of run through a wave where you'd lose anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds, okay? And then we'd reverse diet out of that. And usually that's going to take probably, I'd say, 6 to 7 weeks. And then you have about I'd say 6 to 8 weeks where your calories should be getting to 3,500, 3,600 potentially, and you would stay weight stable in that scenario, and then we would come back down again, going for another 10 to 15 pounds. And so within, what is that? A 3-month plus, 8 to 10 weeks on both sides. Basically in 7 months you'd be at 235 pounds. And so that's how we sort of rein this in slowly. And that would be my suggestion to you. And I think the key is just to remember why we all started this. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be fit, and I'm sure you're much more healthy than you were, but we still need to keep an eye on the prize, and we need to keep getting those results. And so there will be no scenario where I'll say, that you should be comfortable gaining weight. And I think we can answer that really quickly by just kind of lowering those carbohydrates on the rest days. And if you say you don't have rest days, well, then my argument might be for more rest days, because your biggest priority is not getting better as an athlete. Your biggest priority at this point should be fat loss, and that will naturally get you better as an athlete. So we're here. We can help. And so, I know you're a fairly constant, person in these webinars, and so keep doing that, and we'll keep kind of getting you headed in the right direction. So Elizabeth's saying, I'm new to this mindset of eating this much and frankly having a hard time wrapping my head around it, wanting to in fear of gaining. I'm overweight, weigh 207. I've done tons of dieting. I don't do CrossFit, but I do weightlift. She's saying she's 40 years old, 5'5". Let's see. Pretty much carry my weight in lower half. I don't feel very good about my weight right now. I lift weights about 3 times a week and do cardio about 3 times a week. Afraid to eat the amount of TDE that was given to me. Seems like so much food. I don't want to gain weight. I'm not sure what to do. Well, we can tell you exactly what to do. I doubt that anyone that gave you your total daily energy expenditure is saying to you that you should eat that amount of food right now. What they are saying to you, though, is that you should work up to those macros, and the reason why you want to work up to those macros slowly. I mean, do you have any idea, Elizabeth, how much you're eating now? It sounds like you have an acute idea of how much you're eating now. I'm not sure that she's maybe 1,400 calories. Okay, so what was the total daily energy expenditure that you got from people or from our coaches? Okay, so 2,500. So basically for the next 11 weeks, you're going to add 100 calories every single week. Now, it sort of depends. In your scenario, I'm going to have you move a little bit slower because obviously we don't want you gaining weight, and we want you being a little conscious. But you already know the secret to keeping fat off, okay? You have higher days, where you're eating a little bit more, but, worst case scenario, you come back on rest day and you come back to that 1,400. See, the problem that you always had, Elizabeth, that you didn't know, is that you never allowed for enough inflammation. And inflammation sort of gets this bad rap. I mean, everybody talks about chronic inflammation like as if chronic inflammation is inflammation. It's not. Inflammation is basically what your body uses to heal yourself, in various ways. And, it affects your immunity system and, all this different types of stuff. When you eat 1,400 calories or you eat low carb, what you're essentially doing is making your cells less, flexible. And so what we want to do is sort of get you in that mode of becoming more flexible. And you go, well, I'm scared. I'm going to gain weight. No, you're not. I mean, you know the answer, okay? You know that you can be 1,400 and that you're still at 207. The problem is you're not going lower than 207 where you are right now, right? You're stuck, and you have no idea how to get out of there. The way that you get out of there is the differentiator that makes each perform different. This is the secret to the sauce. You need to get into the social group too, though. I mean, first of all, you need to talk to April in the coaching forum and wrap your head around a lot of different things. But the other thing is to just dive in, because what I think happens for a lot of people is they let this fear overwhelm them, and what you need to hear is the hundreds of people that were in your same spot that are now on the other side of things, right? So basically, we're going to take you 1 week, 1,500, next week, 1,600, all the way to you get to 2,530. Okay? Once you're at 2,530, we're going to have you stick there for just a couple months because we need your body to become adapted to the 2,530. Okay? You're not going to eat 2,530 every single day. You're going to have rest days where you're going to eat 1,800, 1,900 calories. That'll keep the fat off once you're at 2,530. But then, once we have a couple months where you're sort of stabilized at that higher number, the reason why you're not making any gains right now is because you've painted yourself into a low-calorie corner. What we need to do is get you out of that corner so we can re-hit it again and get the results. It's, in my belief, I might be wrong. I mean, I know we all want to pull off the Band-Aid as quickly as possible. I get that, and if I told you you could go down to 500-600 calories a day, you'd probably, well, sign me up, But ultimately, you would be doing so much more harm than good. And so the approach that we're talking about is going to be the thing that sort of gets you through things. This is why we have the support. This is why we walk people through the scenario. And so don't let your fear stop you from getting to where you ultimately want to go. Starving yourself to death to get under 200 or 180 or whatever isn't going to be favorable. And so, you have to sort of trust the process in this instance because, we've had thousands of people in your exact scenario have a lot of success. And so you need to allow yourself to get over those fears. Any thoughts on that, April?
Obviously I agree with pretty much everything that you were saying. Just the analogy of right now at this point, her calories are so low for her body weight that her bathtub's empty. She's got no water in it. She's got nothing to let out. So she's got to fill up that water a little bit. And just keep in mind, just kind of reiterating what you were saying, just being patient and, and taking the time. Obviously, I'm pretty sure she's probably been at 1,400 calories for a long time now. If you've got the patience to hang out there and deprive yourself, and for that period of time and just be hungry, take the time to build it back up and you'll be much happier, much healthier. You'll be able to enjoy a slice of birthday cake at your kid's party without, stressing or worrying that you're going to get fat or you're going to gain 3 pounds, or,
But I need to stop you because you're saying some really awesome stuff that I really need to hammer home. That bathtub analogy is so, so awesome because what happens when people, I'm sure Elizabeth has had some days at 1,400 where she's kind of gone off the rails a little bit and had a meal or two that are out of the question, right? Well, then she shows up, the scale's up higher, and she's like, oh my goodness, this is setting me back so far, and potentially you then have a binge cycle that lasts a lot longer because of that. What you are missing out on is what April said. It's that water that you're continuously pulling from your body that isn't allowing you to get to where you want to go. Another way to say it is when you have carbohydrates, when you have an adequate amount of calories, it sends a signal to your body to upregulate your metabolism. It actually fills up your muscle. That's what I was talking about earlier. On the days that you may feel uncomfortable, you may feel bloated, things of this nature. But I'm going to tell you, if you did a body fat test that day, your body fat might be lower. It probably would be lower because your muscles would be filling up. Right now, with using April's bathtub analogy, you're just pulling all the water out of the bathtub, and you have to fill up the bathtub occasionally to get to where you want to go. You don't need to gain weight in that scenario, but you have to refill those muscles, and getting back up to a realistic calorie point is going to be, you know within your heart of hearts, you know what we're saying is right. You know you can't do it doing it the way that you're doing it. You know that it's going to harm you, but you don't really logically think that, this approach makes sense. But when you look at it, it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the way that your body wants to thrive, and it's sort of a well-known concept, right? Within exercise physiology. I mean, people know, I mean, I've always heard the comparison with Weight Watchers, right? Is that if you keep going Weight Watchers, and you calorie, you're going to be stuck at that 800 number, and you've got nowhere to go, right? So one of the advantages for you is that you already do lift weights, you already do cardio, and so we're not saying you would never get a little bit more aggressive with calories, but I'm just trying to look at, so like your wave method, in a couple months, let's say that we get you to 25, 30. I mean, basically your wave method numbers are probably going to be somewhere, 1900. I'd say probably I'd have to do the math on it, but it'd be 1900, 1750, and then probably 1400 would be the lowest we would say, and that would only be maybe 2 days a week. Right now you're trying to do 1400 every day of the week, and like April was saying, you just emptied the bathtub too quickly, and so the slower you do it, the better off you'd be. But then the key is to stop dieting. Like I said, even in my wife's scenario, she talks to me every single day. We know each other really, really well. She's like, I want to continue on. I'm like, you can't continue on. Because if you continue on, she's going to cost you muscle. Ultimately, Elizabeth, that's what's happening right now. All these down regulations going to end up hurting your hormone function, things of this nature. You need to go the other way. And trust us on this. We're here with you. We're not leaving, okay? I will die trying to get you the results that you need. That's fact, because this is more than just, the cost of you to perform to me. This is personal. I was in your situation, okay? I went from 225 pounds to where I'm at now. I dieted my way to obesity. And so it's the dieting that's the problem. It's not the solution, right? We can get you to a deficit that makes sense, but you have to trust the process a little bit. So Taylor is saying, I'm on a cutting phase now. That being said, what is the lowest I should drop my carbs to? Maxing out at 415 on training days and 200 on control days. Fats are at 90 grams. Keep in mind my activity level is very active. I mean, honestly, I think 200 might be a little bit aggressive, even in that scenario, but I don't have any problems with 200 grams of carbohydrates. I think that probably makes some sense for you. If you're cutting, though, you would probably want to look at some level of calories, but you're saying that you're very active. I mean, we can't really have a discussion about cutting and also being very active. You have to decide what's more important. Is fat loss more important, or getting better at exercise more important? When you want to get better at exercise, we feed that exercise. If you want to do fat loss, we take short periods where we do it. That's how we do it with all of our athletes. That's how we do it with most people. And so he's saying, well, I would be changing it to moderately active on the calculator. Well, you can change it on the calculator to whatever you want, but if you don't reduce your level of activity, you're going to struggle there. Now, like I said to Derek earlier, you could start trying there, right? And you might see results, but what I think you're ultimately going to be dealing with is sort of what we've been talking about seemingly for this whole, webinar, is you're really going to be dealing with like water levels, for the first 3 to 5 pounds. You don't really start getting into the fat until a little bit after that, and frankly, it does suck a little bit. you're not able to work out near as much. Now, it sounds like you're probably a younger guy. You might be able to get away with a little bit more than, somebody like me at 46 years old. So it's something you can play with a little bit, but ultimately I would not be doing anything as it relates to a cutting phase if, you're relying upon activity, or you're trying to train for something, or things of that nature. So I hope that's helpful. We're getting sort of close to the end of the class here, so I'm going to get to Andy's question here, but if you have any follow-ups, Taylor, shoot them over. So Andy's saying, okay, I'm 6'3", 260. What you're saying about body weight exercise is true for me. I was at 230 last year on a very low-carb diet. Put on 15 when I did a competition, another 15 when I started Eat to Perform, but April got me in a zone to maintain. Performance has improved a lot. I'm at 3,400 calories, 2,700 on rest days. Have 3 rest days a week. I'm at about 22% body fat. Pretty good at hitting macros, and I've seen the weight start trending down. Should I be patient or adjust my macros? I guess the question would be is how long have you been at 3,400, Andy? That would be my question for you.
And I'm curious to know how much the weight is trending down weekly.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're, looking at, a pound a week, maybe even 2 pounds a week, I mean, what more are we looking for? I don't know if Andy's typing or not. He asked the question at 7:39. It's now 14 minutes, so he might be going, but let's see. Since November, I drop about a half a pound a week. So let's see. So you're saying that you're at 3,400 calories and you've been at 3,400 calories since November. Is that correct? And you are losing a little bit of weight, but it sounds like it could be a little bit more aggressive. We have one more question coming in from Michelle here. Yes, I gained some and recently started losing as I got better at this. Okay. I would say that you would be comfortable, starting on, right now, if you want to. If you're at 3,400, you could sort of wave down. Like I said, I think your numbers would probably be 2,900, 2,600 on low active days, and then 2,300. But the goal is 10 to 15 pounds. If you're already losing a half pound a week, you should be able to hit that 15-pound number pretty easily in 8 to 10 weeks. So I think you're probably fine trying it right now, since you've you've had some adjustments. Things feel kind of right. Did you get those numbers, Andy? I can say them again if you need them. But it's basically 2,900, 2,600, 2,300. 2,300 would be on your rest days. I'm telling you, on the rest days, the best thing you can do is be active, walk around, do stuff. Really rely on fats. What I do, honestly, I'm just gonna be straight up. I typically will have something like oatmeal in the morning, and I usually save a lot of my calories for the evening. Like I might have a small salad with some chicken for lunch or something of that nature. But I really do kind of like the better I could do Metflex, the better I would ultimately be. And so usually on those days I have like a ribeye or some kind of ground beef, something that's kind of high in fat, with some type of salad, things of that nature. Wouldn't necessarily do a starch, but I would have some carbohydrates with dinner, especially if you're going to work out the next day. So let me know if you didn't get those. I could say those again. saying yes, 2,900, 2,600, 2,300. I was at 2,300 last week when sick and lost 3 pounds, some of which came back with renewed workouts, 3,400 days. And you know what? That's how it's supposed to go, Andy. That's sort of what I was talking about with Elizabeth, is that you're supposed to gain weight. If you're not gaining weight on occasionally, it's not going to send the signal to your body that you should go down. And so if you just go to the bottom and you just stay at 2,300, you'll get stuck there. But if you bounce off that bottom at 2,900, 2,600, 2,300, try and stay at 2,900 as long as you can. But really, in I would say 10 weeks for you, because you have a little bit more fat to lose. But you're a big guy. I mean, like, you're 6'3", so being 260 pounds at 6'3" is nowhere near the problem that we talked about earlier, where you might be 5'8". So I wouldn't be super concerned there. But if it starts to get really super uncomfortable around week 8, just stop. If you've lost, say, 10 pounds, that's a good number. So I wouldn't be overly worried about that. So you're more than welcome to talk to April. And you feel comfortable, April, with the macros that I gave him there?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have any question, Andy, take it up with April. So Michelle's asking, in the WAVE method, I mean, I just really have to say this to you guys with the WAVE method. Please don't start the WAVE method unless your macros are at the top number, because you're just wasting your time. You're going to end up losing muscle. But the other thing is, you have to stop. It's so tempting to continue on. I mean, I have to say, like, it wasn't that tempting for me, but it is more tempting for my wife. But there's a part of me, I don't know. I guess I kind of, like, I wanted to get to 170, and I don't really know that I ever want to be lower than 170. I just feel too small, and so, like 170, I mean, am I like 8% body fat? No, I'm at like 13, 15%, depending on the day and depending on, how, my carbs are. But, people act like 15% is like a death sentence or something. I mean, go to Walmart, go to the mall sometime soon. 15% is pretty damn good, But, holding out at a higher number does allow your body to build more mass. And so, I'll see how things go, but I'm pretty certain that I'll end up getting more closer to 12 to 10 within 6 months to a year, based on being at that higher weight, and then kind of moving towards more of a bodybuilding style training, having good Metcon days. I mean, the one thing that I like to do is keep my activity up, when I'm in a phase like this, because obviously, I have enough food in my system to kind of allow for recovery and things of that nature. So Michelle's asking, in the WAVE method, how long would you be at full macros before incorporating this? Typically 3 months is the answer. I just don't think that your body's going to adjust to it enough without it being 3 months. And I think that staying at a certain weight, like Andy is describing it, it took him a while to sort of figure out how to kind of tweak it that worked for him. I can tell you what works for me, and I can tell you what works for April, and we could troubleshoot your situation a million ways over, but the reality is that you have to sort of feel how you can toggle the system for you. And once you have that in place, now all of a sudden we can start to address kind of the fat loss. And so how long have you been doing Eat to Perform, Michelle?
I agree. I just wanted to add my opinion. I think at least 12 weeks, but I think that she needs to have worked up and reached the point and stay there for 12 weeks, not taking 9 weeks to work up and then I've spent 3 weeks here and oh, I'm ready, because I don't think that's
Well,
long.
no, that's what I said.
Yeah.
The question was, how long would you be at full macros before incorporating this? So a lot of people, like we were talking about with Elizabeth earlier, she needs to work from 1,400 to 2,500 calories. Okay, so that process alone is going to take 11 weeks, and so that's 3 months right there, and then we're looking at 3 months after that. Michelle's saying, I've been doing it for a year. I'm helping two girls. If these women are, say, 120 pounds, though, you know what I mean, and they're trying to lose 10 pounds, to lose fat, more often than not, that's not going to be the correct path for them. But if it's somebody that's, say, 220 pounds, let's see, they are at about 165 and 5'2". I would say that they could comfortably try getting, let's see, November, December, October, or I'm sorry, November, December, January, February, March. It's sort of close, but, I would go ahead and try it. Because I think at 165, 5'2", they probably do have, some wiggle room. The one thing I can say about a lot of people that are at 165 or women at 165 is they are really under-muscled. And so, let's see, they are seeing recomp improvements. Yeah, that's pretty common. They would see recomp because they're getting muscle back. And so that's actually, what you're saying to me is all the signs that they should consider a short period of fat loss. But, just remind them, we're talking 8 to 10 weeks, and honestly, I really believe in the 8-week thing. I don't even really like 10 weeks. There's some people that recommend 12 weeks, and over and over, what I've seen is if I can take someone 8 weeks, they'll almost never lose muscle. At 10, it starts to get iffy. At 12, a lot of times we'll see them lose muscle. So them getting their calories right is probably why they're kind of recomping and seeing some good results in the mirror. And so let's continue on that path. Let's try and get them, in that 155 range. The one thing that I would say, though, is, if they want to go 8 weeks, decide on 8 weeks, and wherever they're at after that 8 weeks, just cut it off. They're already seeing good gains. There's no reason why they can't continue seeing good gains. But I think after the 8-week period, what I'd probably like to see their numbers be would be like 157, something in that nature. So don't, if they don't hit their number at 155, it's not like, like a death sentence. Just stop at 157. But do allow for a little wiggle room. So, what'll happen for a lot of people, and, I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, once I got to 170, I do allow, I've been as high as 174. Like I said, that, that day after, the place that kind of, messes with me mentally, I was 174.4, immediately this morning, as an example, I think this morning would be the morning that I woke up. I was at 173, and I'm fairly certain today's kind of a control day for me. It's a rest day, so I should be under 172. But I allow for that 3 to 4 pounds of sort of wiggle room, especially right now. I'm not necessarily looking to stay under 170, but I am looking to stay under 172.5. Whenever I see numbers over 172.5, that's when I get a little bit more strict. At this point, I don't count calories. I just really kind of use this scale, but I also kind of do some carb cycling, similar to what I talk about with you guys. But if, for instance, what's happened a lot is I've been 171 or 170 and a half. On those days where I'm 171 or 170 and a half, usually on my machine, I look like I have more fat, and so those are the days that I tend to try to carb up, have a good workout, maybe a full body, or do something real heavy for reps, things of that nature. So I hope that's helpful. It is 8:07. April's got to put her kids to bed, and I need to run. But great questions, you guys. I'm sort of glad that there's a lot of interest in the wave method. We wrote that article, and it didn't really resonate with people initially the way that I thought it would, and I think it is, we've seen a lot of success, personally, with clients that I've worked with, clients that April's working with, and one of the things that people always kind of struggled with was the idea that we would tell them to take more rest days. And the nice thing about the wave method is it does allow you to go as long as you can while seeing results without taking away those rest days. And so, of course, at some point you have to make that decision. And I fully support people. I mean, if the goal is fat loss and you're taking an 8-week period, then let's cut back your workouts. But, cutting back your workouts 2 to 3 weeks, honestly, ain't going to kill you. I know you like going to the gym. We all like going to the gym. It's nice to be able to have those goals. It's nice, it's probably a big change compared to where, if you're anything like me, the way your life used to be. But, let's keep our eyes on the prize. Let's keep focused on results. And, I thought you guys had great questions. Okay, once again, get in the forums. Get in the social group. I'm telling you, social group, it's awesome. People are going to love it, and you're going to love the support that you get there. Deep dive in, post some videos. Let's have some fun with it. And the nice thing is I'm there, April's there, James is there, and close to 1,000 people in a week showed up. So appreciate everybody being there. If you're not there, get there. And any thoughts, April?
Get there. Come to the group. We want to hang out. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. Hold on 1 second. I got to make sure
It's still live.
that I got this link.
It's still live.
Hold on.
Okay.